First and foremost, I'd like to give all honor and praise to Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who are teaching this truth and sincerity. And a shout out to the Akim that's out here also pushing the word, you know, and is holding down that city, even if you're alone like I am, you know, but you're coming out and you're pushing this word in sincerity, you know. Want to give all honor and praise to you, and most of all to Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai. And we're going to, you know, today's, we're just going to read an entire passage here taught by Yahweh Shai himself. And where did he teach this at? In the cities. Absolutely. Just like what we're doing today, you know, those that have this truth. So I'm starting John chapter 10 verse 1. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he that entereth in by the door is the shepherd of the sheep. And that's what we're here to do, is to shepherd the flock. You know, I didn't just come to this truth by myself. You know, it took other good shepherds in order to lead this. And, you know, that's what we're to do, is to pass it on. You know, but we're to be good shepherds, you know, because you know, you're not going to find this truth in the 501c3 church. You know, they're going to tell you lies, because the whole world is in a fictional reality, which it's been totally fictional. You know, Jesus Christ is not a so-called white man, but is in fact a dark-skinned man having white woolly hair. But you won't hear that in the 501c3 church. No, nor will you be told that blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans are the real people of Yasharahla, of Israel. You know, nor will you be told that the only ones that are going to be saved are going to be an elect few, which are the elect of Yasharahla, the 12, you know, pretty much 144,000 of the 12 tribes, you know, which are blacks, Latinos, Native Americans, and then among that you have confusion of faces. To him the porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calleth his own sheep by name and leadeth them out. Again, you know, what had happened is I was being called out, you know, because, you know, here it was, I was searching for the truth, and eventually the right words came out, and then I was able to receive this truth. But we need good shepherds, and that's what I'm trying to do, is to pass it on. And when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger they will not follow, but will flee from him, for they know not the voice of strangers. Again, well, what is the strangeness, you know? Well, we got the strangeness of Christianity, which doesn't even match biblical scripture. How many times have you gone to the 501c3 church and you try to follow along with what that pastor's teaching, but yet you're reading it for yourself? It's like, well, I don't think that that was really talking about that. You know, things have been differing, you know, because this is strange, you know, but, you know, yet at the same time, the truth was always there. You're reading it, but it's not the way that they are perceiving it. It's not the way that they are teaching it. Because this word of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai differs with everything we've been taught, because we've been taught wrongly, you know. So again, you know, like virgins, you know, and that's what it's talking about when it's talking about the 144,000 are like virgins. In other words, you know, we don't know of any other truth but this truth. You know, and we've come to the reality that nothing else matters but this truth, you know. Everything else, you know, has been a lie, you know. The news, they lie to you on a constant basis. You know, so-called American dream, that's been a lie. You know, that no matter what you do to try to get ahead, that you can't get ahead in this society made up of Esau, the so-called white man. You know, so you got all these other doctrines of devils that are out there. And this was done purposely because he was only going to select a few, you know. When Yahweh Shai was out on the streets teaching, very, you know, 2/3 of our people did not want to listen or hear his word. And they're the same people today that mock us, you know. And if you're being mocked, well, then you must have the truth, because, again, you know, the word Jesus Christ, which is not his name, well, that's being taught everywhere, you know. You can go anywhere and pretty much hear that name, you know. You aren't going to be persecuted for having that name, which is a fallacy, which is another name, you know, quote unquote, another gospel. Because of course it is, because it's not the actual word of Yahweh B'Hashem Yahushai. You know, and we don't teach in the name of Jesus Christ or God. We teach in the names Yahweh and Yahushai, because only the elect of his people are going to know the names thereof. You know, and there are others that know the names, but you know, they teach fallacies, you know, so we have to be good shepherds and lead the flock, which is what the elders and apostles of Great Millstone do. And these other camps and all that, they got this information still from Great Millstone, but they went off and taught other things, and they won't even give, you know, the resources. They won't even say that they had learned this originally from the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, but they'll talk their shit, you know. And of course, because this gospel wasn't meant for them, because they are mockers of the word, and they're going to pay for that, you know. And unfortunately, our people, a portion of them are stuck in them camps, which are still the elect, but, you know, eventually they'll come around. You know, we talk about this all the time. So, you know, what's happening now is that, you know, the deep state is, you know, being weakened because, of course, all these countries are turned against America, Babylon the Great, and they hate her. They want to burn her with fire. And they're like, no, we don't want Kurdistan over there, you know, because they know that this whole idea of creating a Kurdish state is really to go after Iran so they can get their foot in the door with Iran, which is what's going to kick off the prophecy of Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39. And we're seconds away from that. But here in Babylon the Great, though, you know, they did a false flag a couple weeks ago. You know, the Las Vegas shooting, you know, they don't have the influence that they used to. Most people know that that's bullshit, that that was a false flag, just like 9/11 was, just like Boston bombing was. You know, most people know that the news is fake, and that these crisis actors, you know, they just don't fool the people like they used to. Their sphere of influence is not as strong as it used to be, you know. And so, you know, now people are questioning things as to, well, what narrative are you pushing? Yeah, exactly, because this whole thing has been nothing more than a dog and pony show. The same thing as Christianity, you know, has been nothing more than a dog and pony show. It's like, well, how can he love the wicked? Oh, you know, love the sinner but hate the sin. You know, that doesn't even make any sense. Because if you're doing wickedness, well, you're choosing to do wickedness. The sin didn't create the sinner. The person committed the sin, you know? And again, you know, Christianity teaches quite the opposite, that, you know, it's okay just as long as you go to church on Sunday and you give all your money to the church, or give 10% to the church, that you'll be saved, you know? And what do? You know, they sit on their fat asses, and they eat pork and all these abominable foods, and, you know, they pretty much just are having a festivity, kind of like bullshit Thanksgiving, you know, which is really nothing more than a celebration of the murder of our people. You know, because this place, Babylon the Great, has drinking of the blood of the saints. The saints are the Israelites, which are the blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. This place was based upon the murder of all of them. And, of course, we're only taught a small portion of it. But you go into the depths of it, you know, which I recommend the other channel, In Revelation Times, where I show you all these things, you know, because, you know, as from others teachers, but, you know, I try to put it all together in a compilation clip. You know, that way you can see what's going on with Great Millstone and what's going on in the news, and we put it together, and we even have the Syria news in Arabic. You know, unfortunately, they don't have it in English anymore, you know, because, of course, you know, like everything else, they don't really want you to know what's going on there, but everybody knows that North Korea is not threatening anybody, but are pretty much saying that if threatened, if cornered, they'll have no choice but to use their weapons, you know, and that's what America's trying to do, is back them in a corner. And, of course, it's also a distraction from Syria because they lost their foot in the door, you know, so that's why this Kurdistan state and all these other countries don't want that, including Saudi Arabia now, who's now going with Russia's plan, you know, to keep Assad, you know, because they can see that any deals with the United States, you know, is going to mean the Kurdistan state, because of course ISIS, which is their other proxy army, is pretty much dissolved. So now they have to go with plan B, which is to still partition Syria, you know, and still, you know, have a Kurdistan state, which is they tried the same thing with Saddam Hussein, you know, but it had failed, because Saddam Hussein pretty much still had order in that country, which is why the false flag in 9/11, so they could go in and get rid of Saddam Hussein. And they figured that this war on terror would be a way of doing it, which is a false narrative, you know. So, you know, the war on terror, then it eventually became the war against ISIS, and the, you know, but it's all proxies, you know. It's all reasons to go in and invade, because there's no reason for anything else. And they tried to push this Las Vegas shooting as ISIS, you know, and I think most people know that's bullshit. It's like, you know, there's nothing to believe anymore, you know. And again, you know, they pushed the Syrian refugees, and then you heard all the rhetoric about, oh, well, we don't want to take in the Syrian refugees because there might be ISIS about. ISIS is a fictional group, just like Christianity is a fictional reality, you know. The one that they call Jesus Christ did not love the entire world when he said he so loved the world. He loved his people, for he so loved his people. For Yahweh so loved his people that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever, which means the elect that should find him, which is what's happening now, shall not perish but have everlasting life. We're going to have everlasting life in this kingdom. And, you know, we're praying for that kingdom, you know, that pretty much that we are a part of that elect, because we do want to get out of here, you know. You know, and the only reality there really is this truth. You know, everything else has been a fictional reality, a Truman show. You know, they think for you, you are what they believe, and Esau, the so-called white man, runs it all. But yet Esau, you know, tries to portray himself, especially if you watch any biblical movies and all that he's all those things. No, the only thing he really is the Roman Empire. He's not the Greeks or the others, but he did suppress those kingdoms and took it over. You know, the real Greeks are the Samoans that are in those isles. That's where they really ended up, you know, those that had fled that invasion. But like everything else, Esau took over the tongue and everything. You know, the same thing with with Spain when they took over the EU, when the beast had ascended out of the pit, which means, you know, when Esau came back into power, because the Roman Empire had pretty much been under the rulership of Yasha'Allah of Israel. That's who the Moors, the nobles were, you know, were AKA dark-skinned people. But, you know, Esau came back to power when the 1,000 years had expired, about 1492, and had whited out the images and changed the image of Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, and changed the images of the Israelites so that Israel would be no more. And all these countries were confederate with Esau's plan to do that, to deceive the world into believing that the so-called white men were the Jews, you know. And that's where the Ashkenazis, which are the Amalekites, that's where this whole deception began. So everything you've seen has been pretty much a lie, you know. And we have to come out here and tell our people. We have to be the good shepherd now and tell our people to come back to their nationality. Stop eating pork, catfish, crab. Stop engaging in these wicked feast days such as Thanksgiving, Halloween, Christmas, because the worship of a tree and all that, these are abominations. And that's the filthiness of this place, Babylon the Great, full of abominations and blasphemies. It's blasphemy. He is not a so-called white man. He is a dark-skinned man with having hair white like wool and feet like undefined brass as if burned through a furnace, is what his real image is. But they want you to worship the image of Cesare Borgia, of Esau, the so-called white man. But it's time to come out of that now. Stop worshiping Cesare Borgia. And that's why, you know, all these false flags are being allowed to be carried out. You know, the geostorms and everything else, that the Most High is allowing them to do this because our people don't want to stop worshiping Cesare Borgia. You know, they have that image of him, that statue there in Rio, you know, and no, they still would rather follow the so-called white man, thinking that the so-called white man is their friend. Esau has never been a friend to Jacob. Esau has perpetual hatred. And you can see that with everything that they've done, you know. If you hadn't watched the Columbus, you know, the one that was about Columbus Day, you know, video on it in Revelation Times, it's still there. Check it out, because, you know, what they did to our people, you know, no other people has done this except for Esau, the so-called white man. Did that to the blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, who are the real Israelites. Because Esau, the so-called white man, has a perpetual hatred towards Jacob, you know, that he would slew his brother. And that's what he did, because the spirit of Cain is upon Esau, the so-called white man. And that's what he does. He drains all the resources, leaves nothing, you know, which is what he's done. Look at the devastation in Syria. You know, Damascus had almost fallen. And they're eventually going to cause that place to cease. But like everything else, though, we know that we're in the beginning of the end. All these are the beginning of sorrows. You know, but they're pushing that mark of the beast, RFID implement, you know, with all these false flags, and, you know, they control the weather. And, of course, like everything else, they want to microchip everyone, which is the final enslavement. You know, so, and we're the only group out there that's telling people not to take that RFID mark of the beast. All the other camps, which are paid off by Esau, are going to tell you that it's something else. But you see, you be not deceived. That's what it means to be a good shepherd. So, you know, I hope this has been edifying, and I'll be back again to do another lesson very soon. Shalom.